Next, from Chicago, Attorney General Lisa Madigan is joined by several nurses as they announce their support for legislation that would provide specialized hospital care for child and adult victims of sexual assault. This runs about 20 minutes.
For members of the media, the reason that we are here at the Hilton today holding this press conference is because Herman's organization, End Violence Against Women International, is here in Chicago this week having their conference. And many of the partners that we work with day in and day out to improve our response and our care for sexual assault survivors are here attending the conference. So that is why we are all here today. I will introduce all the folks behind me because they are going to get up here to speak. So I am here today with this tremendous group of supporters to call on lawmakers in Springfield to pass a law to require that children and adults who have been sexually assaulted receive specialized care at Illinois hospitals. As everybody here knows, and frankly I think is common sense, survivors of sexual assault need and deserve thoughtful care and treatment, and law enforcement and community safety also depend on appropriate care to sexual assault survivors. But unfortunately, Illinois hospitals have been reluctant to provide appropriately trained staff in their emergency departments to the thousands of children, women, and men who are sexually assaulted in Illinois every year. I believe that this is simply unacceptable, and it is yet another example of how crimes committed primarily against women, children, people who are LGBTQ, and people living with disabilities are not taken seriously. After years of unwillingness and delay, this bill, if it becomes law, will finally require Illinois hospitals to do what they should have been doing all along, having trained staff in their hospital emergency departments so that sexual assault survivors receive appropriate care. The gold standard of care is provided by a sexual assault nurse examiner, which is commonly called a SANE nurse. SANE nurses are trained to collect physical evidence following a sexual assault, respond to the psychological needs of a survivor, and testify in court. Trained medical staff who provide specialized care are widely acknowledged to make a significant difference for survivors, and it also increases law enforcement's ability to successfully prosecute offenders. For many years, I have tried to work with the Illinois Hospital Association to voluntarily do what's right and increase the number of SANE nurses in SANE programs across Illinois. Since 2004, my office has provided 40 hours of SANE classroom training to approximately 1,500 nurses in Illinois. But today, at most, 150 SANE nurses are practicing in emergency departments across the state. And there are no 24/7 SANE programs in any hospital in the state of Illinois. Contrast that with the fact that over 18,000 people reached out to rape crisis centers in the state in 2016, and 4,500 patients were seen in emergency rooms. That is shocking, and it is because hospitals have not lived up to their commitment to provide the support, the resources, clinical training, and programs that nurses need to become fully trained SANEs. Most hospitals discourage nurses to get the necessary training by failing to provide them with the financial support needed to obtain training. So instead, these good, committed nurses usually attend training on their own time, often vacation time, and if they need to travel, they use their own money. Nurses also do not receive support from their hospitals to complete the necessary clinical opportunities to become a fully trained SANE in Illinois, despite the fact that nurses undergo training routinely as part of their careers. So what this legislation boils down to is to demand that children and adults who survive sexual assault receive compassionate and appropriate treatment when they go to the hospital. The hospitals are opposing this effort in Springfield, saying it requires too much. But isn't the entire purpose of a hospital to provide appropriate care to people who go there? After years of the hospital's broken promises, today I say their time is up. We will have SANE programs in hospital emergency departments throughout the state of Illinois with everybody's help. Let me say thank you to everybody who is on the stage with me as well as who is in the room today for the work that you have done to try to make sure that survivors of sexual assault receive the appropriate care. This is very difficult work. And it also requires a tremendous commitment from the nurses and other medical practitioners who work with these survivors. And so I want to acknowledge how appreciative I am and we are that you are willing to do this work, because it helps not just that survivor in terms of recovery and moving on with their life, but it helps us in law enforcement in making sure that we have collected the evidence and therefore are able to proceed with a prosecution. And as you know, if we have a survivor who is willing to cooperate with law enforcement, it makes a world of difference, and so much of that hinges on how they are treated when they first go to an emergency room. So thank you for your efforts there, and we will do better in Illinois because we have to do better. I think it should be not just a moral obligation, but because it hasn't worked that way, we'll make it a legal obligation. With that, we are happy to answer your questions. Craig.
Do you have an estimate for how much it costs to train each nurse? And could some hospitals, especially those that are in communities where they may be operating close to the margin, providing a lot of charity care or the like, say this is just something, an expense that we can't bear?
So what I can tell you is that out of the Illinois Attorney General's office, we have been providing the 40 hours of classroom training to nurses who are interested at no cost to the hospitals. I can have somebody else talk about how much of a cost it is in terms of providing that clinical training that they also need. But what I would, in addition, want to say about that is that we cannot ignore people when they show up in the emergency department with real needs. By not providing trained medical practitioners to address the psychological needs, the physical needs, the evidence collection, we on the law enforcement end are making our communities unsafe by not being able to successfully prosecute people who are perpetrating sexual assault crimes in our communities. But with that, is there somebody here behind me, for instance, who can give us a sense of what the cost is? Additionally, Craig, I can tell you that, look, nurses and other medical practitioners do need to receive constant training. So there already is a requirement to do that. Whether or not the hospitals are providing the financial support that nurses and other practitioners need, I don't know off the top of my head. They'll get back to you, Craig. Go ahead.
Well, it seems, this is the other Craig, it seems rather obvious this is something that hospitals would want to do for the patients. So what has been their pushback? Is it simply been money, or has there been other reasons?
I don't think they directly say to us it's money. In fact, they make commitments that they will, which they've been doing, I mean, over the last 8 to 10 years. And still, as you just heard, we have no 24/7, 365-day-a-year SANE programs operating in hospital emergency departments in the state of Illinois. That's unacceptable. You know, I want to give credit to the hospitals that are trying, because they are out there. But we were given a commitment back in 2011 from the Illinois Hospital Association that they would have at least one fully operational SANE program in each of the 11 regions of the state. They did a lot of press around it. Maybe some of you were even there. We went over to Advocate Masonic Hospital, and we stood around in the emergency department and had a great big splash about that. They wrote about it, but we haven't seen actual results, and that simply has to change. Again, it's very difficult to understand why it is when you have thousands of people who show up in hospital emergency rooms every single year, predominantly women, children, a lot of children, LGBT individuals, individuals living with disabilities. They are not provided with the care that they need and that they deserve. So ask the hospitals why they aren't doing this. Do we have any other on topic? Go.
How will Illinois compare with other states if this law is passed?
If this law is passed, I hope we will be doing a lot better, as opposed to, as you heard described earlier, being very far behind other states. We can get you some of that information about our surrounding states. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I have read through it. Any other on topics? Go.
Are you beginning to do community meetings on the consent decree?
Correct.
what you're learning.
So we are doing a series of 14 community meetings throughout the city of Chicago in terms of police reform. And so far, I think we have done 5 to 6 of them. We have one tonight in Back of the Yards. We have one tomorrow night in Chatham. And next week, actually on Saturday, Lawndale. Next Monday, I believe we are in Austin. And then I don't remember the rest of them off the top of my head. But we have been gathering very diverse, thoughtful groups of people in some of the most affected communities in the city who have been talking to us about their ideas as well as their experiences regarding policing in the city of Chicago. And those meetings are being actually facilitated by individuals out of UIC. They have an Institute for Civic and Public Engagement. And so they are compiling all of that information. They will be issuing a report that we will put up on our website. So I would strongly encourage people, if they would like to give us their thoughts, they can attend one of these community meetings, but they can also give us a call. We have a number that they can call. You can get on our website. We have an entire form that can be filled out with any questions, concerns, ideas you have in terms of police reform. I don't think there are any surprises. What I will say that has been very encouraging is that we have had nice turnout, as well as people who truly are being thoughtful. These aren't meetings where, you know, people are venting. These are meetings where people who are knowledgeable, concerned, and have been engaged for a long time around these issues have come to, you know, give us their input, give us their thoughts, give us their ideas and solutions. And so far it's been going very, very well. Yes, yes. So we are, yes.
The question is, I get why it depresses people wanting to be counted.
Right.
I don't get why it's illegal. Why doesn't the federal government have the right to ask that question?
Well, we need to know, as a country, as a state, as the city of Chicago, we need to know everybody who is living here. And we need to know that, not just because it's interesting, but because the provision of resources depends on it, as well as our ability to determine what types of services need to be provided to people that are living here, regardless of their citizenship status. And so I think that any attempts to depress the turnout and the response to the census is something that damages our democracy, as well as making it much more difficult for government to provide necessary services to all the people that are living in their jurisdictions. I do not believe it is, which is why we have filed a lawsuit. So stay tuned on that.
Thank you, Attorney General Madigan. And my phone is off for the rest of this. Just a little history. In 1976, the state of Illinois passed the Rape Victims Emergency Treatment Act. And it was actually spearheaded by a woman named Marty Goddard, who worked in the Attorney General's office. And without Marty and without the Attorney General's office, Arvida, as we called it, would not have come to be. And I think it's wonderful we've gone full circle, and we have our Attorney General being the champion of a bill that has to make the next seismic shift in what happens to rape victims in the state of Illinois when they go to the hospital for care and for evidence collection. So one of the things that occurred back when Marty was leading this up was we had to have the hospitals to provide the care, which hospitals do wonderfully. My sister's a nurse. I know the kind of care they're committed to providing to interrupt the injury, to treat the acute care. What we're asking for with rape victims is that we go that next step and make sure that that compassionate care extends to the evidence collection.
So next up, I'm going to bring you one of the experts when it comes to SANES and explaining why, very specifically, sexual assault nurse examiners are critical to have in emergency departments. And so please welcome Deborah Holbrook. She is the Director of Forensic Nursing at Mercy Medical in Baltimore, Maryland.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Holbrook, and I am Director of Forensic Nursing for Baltimore City. And we are here today as forensic nurses in support of the utilization of qualified medical providers known as forensic nurses in the care of all patients victimized by sexual assault and other forms of interpersonal violence. When a victim comes forward, there are two things that I can assure. First, when a first responder starts by believing the victim, we strengthen the road to justice and recovery, and we improve the overall response of the entire system. Second, when a victim of sexual assault and other violent crimes is provided with a forensic nurse, the benefits to all stakeholders in the criminal justice system improves exponentially. Forensic nurses, which are often called SANE or SAFE nurses, are specially educated, registered, and advanced practice nurses who are unbiased, trauma-informed clinicians providing patient-centered care.
I also want to bring up to the podium somebody who is working very hard with the Carle Foundation hospital system to put in place more SANEs in emergency departments. And so please welcome to the stage Tegan Stanowski. She is a nationally certified SANE and the SANE coordinator for the Carle Foundation Hospital in Urbana, Illinois.
Hi, like she said, my name is Tegan Stanowski. I am the coordinator of the sexual assault program at Carle Foundation Hospital in Urbana, Illinois. And our program started out as one of the pilot SANE programs in the state of Illinois in 1999. We have continued for the past almost 20 years now to provide specialized care to survivors of sexual violence in our community, and we would not have been able to do that without a hospital that supports us, that sees the value in our program and the value in the work of these nurses. Anything that we can do as a state to continue to encourage hospitals to see that value, to see the importance of these nurses and the changes that they're making in the lives of these survivors is one step closer as we continue to fight to end violence against women and against all genders. We, right now, even with that support of a hospital that really does value our program, we still are at about 90% in our call coverage, which is very close to 100%, and we're very proud of that number. But I'm hoping that this legislation can help us take that final step to really get to that 100% and to make sure that we're getting to every survivor and every victim and providing them the care that they really, truly deserve. So, thank you very much.
Our overall goal here is to make sure that we don't have to, Tribune Photography if you're here, that we don't have to continue to see headlines like this. We don't want a situation where there are too few trained, SANE nurses available in the state of Illinois. I find this to be unconscionable. For our final speaker.